40 for Rideable Crest Titans.
Last season then in the all-wheel drive Safari Championship, we saw a dominant Chris Cumming take the 2021 title. And he has the honour of running with the number 1 on the door for the new season, of course. It'll be a target though, that is for certain. He didn't have it all his own way last season. Plenty of people making sure that that title victory was well earned indeed. And this season, well, it looks to be even harder. A cracking entry for the first round, looking like it will be gloves off from the start in the newly titled AWDC Britpart Safari Championship in association with Pioneer and Whitchurch MOT Centre. As well as our main and associated sponsors, we'll also have round sponsors. And for round 1, the championship heads to Walters Arena in Wales, with Ali Sport coming on board to sponsor this exciting season opener. Shall we get out there then? Straight out onto the action and a chance to see some of our challengers, old and new, and to start to piece together where these battles will be on the leaderboard. Taking an early lead will be Chris Bird and Anthony Brinkman. They'd have a few small issues throughout the morning, including catching a car on the second run of the day, as well as a problem with fuel starvation. But all in all, the event had got off to a solid start for the pair, who were using this as an opportunity to shake the car down for various plans coming up in 2022. With Bird out in front and opening up a good advantage, it will be Justin Birchall leading the best of the rest. However, that wasn't a fully accurate representation of the leaderboard. Birchall was actually fastest on the first 2 runs, but a puncture on the third run of the day would put an end to those fastest times, dropping him down to second place. Andy DiGiulio would return to the AWDC for this season, and with Rebecca Clarkson alongside, the first time competing together, and things were going well for the duo. They would be on the pace from the start, and close to our leaders' times as well, but a puncture on the 4th run of the day would lose them around a minute and a half. It was not over yet, not by a long shot, although it probably felt like it was with that time lost inside the car. Aston Cox will reflect on last season, and like us, will know that he didn't have the best of luck. He'll be looking to change that in 2022. Out with Richard Rawlingson co-driving this season, and things were going well to kick things off. They had a small issue with an alternator wire coming loose on the second run of the day, but thankfully for them, it only lost them a few seconds, and they were able to end the morning with 4th overall. Incredibly close to DiGiulio up ahead as well, with only 2 seconds of a difference. After a successful season in the British Championship last year, it will be a change of car for Dave and Tony Hooper, making the switch from the B-Maxwell car and moving to a Lofthouse car. This, the first outing in it for the duo. It didn't take them long to get used to it either, starting to put in some good times and ending the morning with 5th place, overall 2nd in Class 9. For Paul Rowlands, meanwhile, it will be a great start in the Class 5 battle, leading the way there after the morning's runs. 30 seconds back from the Hoopers on the overall leaderboard, but a small advantage in the class to nurse. For Mark Jacks, it will be 3rd place in Class 9. It could have been a little higher on the overall order, but he would lose around 30 seconds on the 4th run of the morning after times had previously been getting faster as the day went on. Frustration so early on, but there's a long way to go. As we mentioned earlier then, running with number 1 on the door was never going to be anything but a target. It wasn't giving Chris Cumming much of an easier ride here at the opening round of the season either. He was struggling a little to match the times of those up ahead, ending the morning a little off the pace in 8th place overall, 2nd in the class. And for Stuart Williams, it will be 3rd in that class, but the gaps were opening up a little now as well. With around 2 minutes between them at this stage, Williams does end the morning with 9th place overall though. And rounding out the top 10 now would be Nick Pritchard, a further minute back on the overall times and the only one in Class 3, so the lead was as good as his as long as he could keep things going. There would, though, be a few people having issues here at the opening round, as you'd expect. Richard Kershaw, though, would not be one that you'd be listing high up there, would he? He was suffering with some issues as he still tries to get the car working as it should, retiring after only managing one full run. We'd also lose Rob Bull and Peter King from the order. They retire on run 3. A broken transfer box will be the cause of their retirement, but for the most part, they were happy with their pace and the performance before that issue struck. Rod Parker would, unfortunately for him, lose any chance of a good result from the start. A maximum time on the first run of the day would set him up on the back foot. After that, the times were good and would have seen him well within the top 10 overall instead of 25th, ruining, no doubt, what could have been with a better start to the day. Let's take a look then at some of our class and overall positions outside of the top 10, and it would be 11th place overall for Di Paul Hansen-Phillips and Dal Wheeler. They make a great start to the event. More than happy with that performance, leading Class 4 with it as well. Scott Benwell and Griffin Tweedale would have a new ECU and loom in the car, and it was looking to be working well. The pair get off to a flying start, ending the morning in the lead of Class 6 and in 12th place overall. Henry Webster and Emery's Kirby decided to bring the car and themselves out of the garage after 5 years away, and after an accident back in 2016 when they were last out. There will be some new suspension on the car for this weekend to help with the bumps and the confidence. They were going well, lying 13th overall, as well as leading Class 2. Not bad for a new pairing and a car and crew that hadn't been out for such a long time. Everything going to plan, though, for Leighton and Luke Dodd, as they were pushing the car hard, getting as much out of it as they possibly could, ending the morning 14th overall, second in Class 6. And Morgan and Carl Box will be having a few scary moments on the tricky course today. They were suffering a little with grip due to the tyres, but that wasn't going to stop them pushing on. They end the morning in the Class 7 lead, as well as 16th on the leaderboard. Mike and Amy Cheriton didn't get off to an ideal start, it was fair to say. The bonnet coming loose on the first run of the day. Having to pull over and sort it out was not how they wanted that run to go. Thankfully, though, the rest of the morning would go pretty smoothly. They lie now in 17th place overall, second in Class 7 for now. And Will Thompson is back out again this season, with Tom Bryce and Seren Lillystone sharing the co-driving duties. The plan to take it steady after the car had undergone some repairs since the end of last season. Thankfully for them, everything that they'd fixed was holding up to the abuse, and things were going well. Third in Class 6 was theirs by the midpoint of the event. This weekend would see a first time driving in a Comp Safari event for Greg Finch, and indeed, the first time driving this car as well. In the lead up to the event, he didn't have a co-driver lined up, and it would be Joe Anning from the championship sponsor Pioneer stepping into the role. With no intercom, the pair would be working off hand signals, but it seemed to be working well for them first time out. Fourth in class, 19th overall for now. Team Tennant will be back again this season, we're pleased to say, sharing the driving once again as well, and it would be Philippa who took the first 3 runs. Unfortunately for her, it wasn't all going to plan. A wiring issue needing fixing and causing a few stoppages out on the course, ending the morning with 4th in the class, 20th overall, with some investigation to be done on the car ready for the afternoon's runs. There's just one car for us to keep our eyes on in Class 1, so that position was safe, at least in the class, for Mike Arthur, provided that he gets through the day without any problems, which of course is always easier said than done on these grueling events. And it wasn't a great start to the season for Victoria Vaughan and Owen Davies, it's fair to say. Too many problems to list, in fact, but the main issue would be a misfire on the car right from the start, followed by a more visible issue, a puncture, early into the 3rd run, meaning that they had to complete most of the course on that rim. There'd be plenty of work to do once they got the car back to service, but frustratingly, when they did get back out, the injector plugs would fail, putting them out of the event for good. This weekend would mark only the second time of driving on one of these events for Hannah Mitchell, and the first time in this car, with Dad Stephen Mitchell swapping the driver's seat for the co-driver's seat this weekend. Stephen, of course, no stranger to the AWDC, having competed with the club since the early 80s. Things were going well for the pair, an understandably cautious start with your legend of a dad alongside you, getting used to the car, but we're pleased to say that Hannah's times were still coming down as the morning went on. Second in Class 4 at this stage, 23rd overall. Kieran Jones and Eloise Donovan had recently fitted a new turbo, which they say has transformed the car. They should have been a few places higher up on the overall results, but a problem in run 4 would see the car cut out, not starting again for 12 minutes. Just let that sink in. The time lost, seeing them down in 24th overall, with a bit of damage limitation to do, just managing to hold on to 3rd in Class 4. And after her first and pretty successful season in the AWDC last year, Margaret Bakewell would be back, this time with husband Mike agreeing to sit in the co-driver's seat for the first time. They'd break a track rod on the first run, which would give them a maximum time, meaning the rest of the day could, of course, only get better. More attrition, we lose Rodney Burrows and James Reynolds. This was their first ever event, out in Dave Hooper's 2021 car, which of course has a good proven record. Unfortunately for them, a problem with the auxiliary belt tensioner would have a domino effect and eventually cause the car to overheat. The pair retiring with suspected head gasket failure after a valiant effort to get it round the course. We'd also lose Jonathan Dambrell and Nick Blundell. They'd hit a rock early into the second run of the day, causing some damage to the car and causing them to spin at one point as well. They'd have to try and continue, but the damage would turn out to be worse than they thought. The stub axle had broken and the brake caliper was the only thing holding the wheel on. Of course, that all resulted in further damage and a resultant retirement from the event. So the morning's runs are complete here at the opening round of the AWDC. The leaderboard is shaping up nicely. It's interesting as well. Let's have a look at this. No rest for the wicked. We're straight back out into the afternoon runs. Let's take a look at the finishers and indeed the winners from the opening round. And it will be a 23rd place overall finish for Mike Arthur, getting to the end of the course, taking that class victory in the process. A frustrated Scott Benwell and Griffin Tweedale would take a big loss of places on the overall leaderboard. Too much torque was to blame. They broke the engine mounts and the exhaust, ending the event with a couple of maximum times, meaning they default to a 22nd overall finish, with 4th in Class 6 after what could have been such a good result. There'd be problems as well for Di Paul, Hanson Phillips and Del Wheeler, also getting a couple of maximums in the final runs of the day. Their issues a little more damaging as they rolled the car after clipping a rock on run 7. They do still classify a finish on the runs completed though, taking 20th overall and 3rd in Class 4. That is what you call damage limitation. And after those issues earlier on, no more problems to report for Margaret and Mike Bakewell, meaning that they end the day with 19th overall and 4th in Class 7. The husband and wife team not falling out either, which has to go down as probably the biggest result of the day. Barry Dodd had a good clean run through the afternoon to gain a few positions overall. He'd got a maximum earlier in the day, which hadn't helped the times, but after that things had gone more to plan. Ending today with 17th overall, 3rd in Class 7. There was good and bad news for James and Philippa Tennant. Not getting the issues sorted, but finding the cause of them. The car was blowing fuses when they started and stopping the fans and four-wheel drive from working. They'd continue the day, changing them before each run of the afternoon. Worse was to come though on the penultimate run when they broke a shaft, having to borrow one for the final run of the day. However, there would be more damage than they thought, and they'd be forced to pull off early and take a maximum. ending the event 16th overall. Very disappointed, no doubt, third in Class 5. An earlier problem would mean that Hannah and Stephen Mitchell had to complete a few runs back-to-back late in the event, up against it to get all of their times in. The problem was traced back to the master switch wiring. Luckily, the car was built by Stephen 25 years ago, so he had some knowledge of how to fix the problem once he'd got his memory switched on, and they got back out for those final runs. A good drive, despite the problems, would see them take 15th overall, second in Class 4. Despite the plan to take it easy for Will Thompson, with Tom Bryce and Seren Lillystone alongside, things don't always go to plan. They hit a bad compression and broke the front wheel bearing and engine mount. It will be a slow run then to the end of that course lap and a careful managed drive through the final run to get to the finish flag. Unfortunately for them, a loose wire would have other ideas and would force them to lose around 7 minutes in the final run. It goes from bad to worse for this pair. They do still manage third place in Class 6 though, as well as 14th place overall. With all the problems around them, the times in the afternoon were good for Kieran Jones and Eloise Donovan. The first time the pair had sat together for a full event as well. And they'd come away with a class victory in Class 4, as well as 13th place on the overall leaderboard. It will be a good run too for Greg Finch and Joe Anning on their first time out. Greg has been spectating and marshalling for the last few years, and he, just got the urge to drive, showing that anybody can compete if they want to in this series and even get a strong result, ending the opening round here with 12th place overall, second in Class 6. Well worth the dedication, getting the car ready to be here for the opening round of the season. Well done to them. It would be a broken half shaft on run 5, hindering the times for Mike and Amy Sheraton, having to drive in two-wheel drive, which wasn't easy. Despite this, they do gain time through the afternoon, believe it or not, to end the event second in Class 7, as well as finishing just outside the top 10 in 11th overall. Despite having that number 1 on the door, last year's champion Chris Cumming didn't really have the event he'd planned, not completing the final runs of the event after a problem with the car, and meaning a non-finish to open up his 2022 campaign. We're on to the top 10 then, after what had been a surprisingly grueling opening round, and there'd be enough places gained overall to put Morgan and Carl Box in that 10th place. They were happy with how things had gone, no real issues all day, a rare one today. As you can see, they have a smooth run to the Class 7 victory with that result. For Leighton and Luke Dodds, it would be the Class 6 victory. They have a good, clean run all day, ending the event with 9th place overall. In fact, commenting that the only issue they'd had all weekend was the price of fuel. Let's not go there. Henry Webster and Emery's Kirby couldn't have hoped for a better run out this weekend. It wasn't without its small issues, but that would be expected for a car that hasn't turned a wheel in anger for 5 years, and let's face it, many others had bigger issues. They take the Class 2 victory, as well as a grateful 8th place overall, no doubt. Stuart Williams would gain a couple of places on the overall leaderboard, and importantly for him, a place in the class as well after the loss of Chris Cummings. It could be a poignant moment. It was 2nd place in Class 5 to end the event, as well as 7th place overall. Will these two drivers be looking back on that result by the end of the season, wondering what would have been had it been the other way round? A few punctures would mean that Dave and Tony Hooper do lose a place in the afternoon, but it wasn't really going to worry them too much. Their first time out in the car, and they managed a 6th place overall finish, as well as 2nd in Class 9. A strong end to the opening round, and a good way to open your championship account. Nothing major to report for Mark Jacks means that it's a 5th place finish for the Loft House driver. All quiet here. He would gain a few places overall in the afternoon as well, taking the Class 9 victory due to our podium finishers not taking class awards. There's no change though as far as the class goes for Paul Rowlands, still holding on to that class lead to the finish as well as taking a great 4th place overall. And there's more notable attrition. We lose Justin Birchall, the transfer box and the car breaking. They were unable to get the car fixed and back out in time to complete the final runs, dropping Justin down from what should have been a podium finish into 18th overall. All of that, of course, means that we move on to the podium finishers and there would be some change. It would be 3rd place overall for Aston Cox and Richard Rawlinson, gaining that position left by Birchall. A great first outing of the season and showing what the car is capable of, which is good, as the car is still for sale should anyone want to buy it and join us here in the AWDC. Andy DiGiulio and Rebecca Clarkson will be more than happy with 2nd place this weekend. Their afternoon wasn't a simple one though. An overhanging branch would knock the kill switch, meaning the car needed resetting before they could continue. Thankfully, not losing them much time. A puncture on run 6 though would lose them a bit more. Not enough to affect their result though. But taking victory this weekend would be this man, Chris Bird, Anthony Brinkman alongside, a venue that Chris knows well, and the pair managed to avoid any punctures, all adding up to a great weekend shakedown for the car and ironing out those little issues, taking victory by 2 minutes by the end of the event. So that's it for a dramatic first round of the AWDC Britpart Safari Championship in association with Pioneer and Whitchurch MOT Centre. Our crews have had a bit of a wake-up call, it's fair to say, on this opening round. And with the battles opening up in the overall and class leaderboards this weekend, it looks set to be a highly competitive season. You wouldn't want to call a winner out of this lot so early into the season, that is for sure.
We had a couple of issues with power steering, losing a bit of oil and losing pressure. But apart from that, it was a pretty sensible day.
You happy with the car?
Yeah, the car's lovely. We've had some engine dilemmas over the years, but the car's just really, really good.
Yeah, I said to Paula on the way here, anywhere in the top 5 would be a good start to the championship, and we've finished 2nd. Yeah, so delighted. Thanks to my co-driver for the weekend. Yeah, no, we've done well.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's, well, I'm over the moon really. It's been a long time since I've had a decent result in England. So, yeah, I'm happy, really happy. The car's been absolutely faultless. Robin Clarkson's done a good job looking after it over the winter. And then Warren and Josh have done a fantastic job today looking after me. Unfortunately, Dad hasn't been here this weekend because he's got COVID in the mud. But it's been brilliant, really good. Care 40 for Rateable Crest Titans.